Hi, I'm Arla Smith. I'm with Legal Aid Services of Oklahoma. Today I have Isaac Morris and Jessica Fouch here to answer some questions we have about homeowners and disasters.
Thank you, Arla. Good morning, guys. Good morning. My name is Jessica Fouch. I'm an attorney with Legal Aid Services of Oklahoma, and I'm here with our fellow attorney, Isaac Morris, and our project team mom, we call her Arla. And today we just want to give you a quick overview of homeowners, disasters, and being prepared. First, we'll give you a little bit of background information. Legal Aid Services of Oklahoma. We are a nonprofit legal services company. We provide free civil legal services to low-income and senior Oklahomans. We are funded through LSC, and so that is a federal entity that funds legal service. Go ahead, Arlette. You look like you're
Can you abbreviate on what LSC means?
Legal Services Corporation.
Thank you.
And so they get money from Congress, and then that's handed down to nonprofits such as ourselves. We have an office that covers each of the 77 counties in our state. And we're here in Sapulpa in the disaster office. We've got a pretty cool place here. Isaac, you want to tell us a little bit about disaster legal services and our team?
Sure. So I do also want to say that we work with Oklahoma Indian Legal Services, another nonprofit that is Legal Services Corporation funded. They do disaster legal services for tribal members here in Oklahoma regarding their tribal status, and we have created a website in collaboration with them, OklahomaDisasterLegalHelp.org. Always encourage folks to check that out for all the information we'll be discussing today, as well as tip sheets and flyers we have to help folks be prepared, as well as help them recover from disasters.
And Arla, she heads up our website, so she could probably give us a little bit. Is everything available?
Yeah, everything is available through the website. So if you go to www.oklahomadisasterlegalhelp.org, it'll pop you up on our home screen for the website. That website will give you information about community outreach. It'll give you preparedness information. It'll also give you information for kids, like to have coloring books, things to kind of teach them about weather and what they can do to kind of be safe and prepare themselves as well. Then there's also information on there for our faith leaders. That is a new part that we have on there. And soon we're going to be adding a section for our pro bono attorneys.
Awesome. Awesome. And so we are with the legal team, or the disaster legal services team. Legal Aid Services of Oklahoma. We are a large law firm, and we practice all kinds of different types of law, save for criminal law, but we specialize in disaster recovery. So we're usually following the fires and the tornadoes. And so that's kind of where we're going to focus today, is more of the disaster aspect, because that's what we specialize in. We have a dedicated disaster team, which we're all part of. And we have a couple other folks, Kresha and Krista. We have a pretty cool MIU. We can actually see it from where we're casting today. And so we can take that into the disaster areas. We've got an office in that mobile intake unit. And so we specialize in mostly disaster. Our team, I think Krista started us off in 2013.
Yes.
Doing disaster legal services with Legal Aid. So Krista Figgins headed us up in 2013, and we've been responding since. I think our latest was
The wildfires.
The wildfires in Manford.
2025 wildfires, more than just Manford. So it hit throughout Oklahoma. There were locations set up in Guthrie and Little Axe, as well as Manford and Stillwater, to help find multi-agency resource centers. So those are actually really good to help whenever a disaster happens and you need the resources. You need help finding places for food, additional clothing, trying to replace your documents, help with insurance information. And so those resource centers are set up through Oklahoma VOAD, which is Oklahoma Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster. And there's a whole group of us. There's probably 50 or more agencies that are involved in Oklahoma VOAD that can help everybody recover after a disaster in Oklahoma. And it is Oklahoma-specific agencies as well.
Right. And I think one thing that is very important about the multi-agency resource centers is that it's a one-stop shop, if you will, for trusted organizations that are there to, have been vetted, there to help folks recover, either with resources via,
Right.
manpower, monetary resources, materials. Those organizations that have your best interest in mind, for your recovery and also for the next disaster that does come. Because in Oklahoma, it's always not if, it's when we're going to get hit. So we want to be prepared for everything we can.
Right. And disasters are on the rise. So we've had a federally declared disaster every year the past at least 4 to 5 years
Since 2019.
since
Yep.
2019. And so a big thing in Oklahoma is the amount of low income people. We have about 600,000
Yep.
people that we know of in Oklahoma that are below the federal poverty level. And those people are especially susceptible to disasters.
Right.
Getting prepared, like we had mentioned, we've got a lot of information on our website, checklists of things to do. But I guess just starting, one helpful tip I have that I like to tell people is before a disaster, you want to, get your important documents. One way you can specifically prepare is to have a waterproof and fireproof or container that you can store your important documents in. So I think that's a good first step to getting disaster ready. And having those put away in a safe place. The kind of documents I'm thinking of are going to be, your insurance policies, which a lot of times those are available on an app, but it's always good to have a copy of
Right.
it, a deed to your home. If you're renting, you're going to want your rental agreement.
I think also, your typical personal information, social security cards,
Oh yeah.
old driver's license, wills, life insurance, just those important documents that we all have, that just happen in the normal course of life. You would want to keep those in a safe, fireproof, waterproof safe. In the alternative, if that's not an option, that I always recommend putting a gallon baggie, waterproof bag, where you can put it in the freezer. Helps prevent from
Oh,
fires. Also helps water rises. Your freezer
Yep.
usually will float. Just kind of maybe a financial alternative to a safe.
Yeah.
Because sometimes those are more
what?
expensive. So
I've
So
learned something new every day. That's brilliant.
so
that is not my own. I believe I heard Krista say that years ago, or Arla saying that.
Oh
Yes,
my
I
yeah, that's
apologize.
gosh.
how my grandma
In your
stored.
Yep.
freezer.
She stored all of our important documents in the freezer, birth certificate, things like that. She just, instead of making ice, because we didn't have the water line going to the freezer, she put it in the ice thing and it stayed there. And through the house fire,
Oh
it
my
survived. Yeah.
gosh.
Yes.
But so
Yep.
speaking
Okay.
of that, what are other alternatives that you would advise somebody to use? Would you
So you
say?
could email
Mhm.
some of these documents to yourself. You could store them on some kind of cloud service. I
Uh,
mean, you could store it on your computer, but you fear losing your computer. So
yeah.
maybe a USB in that
Right.
bag
Yeah. Yeah.
with your documents downloaded on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think also just taking pictures of the driver's license, your insurance policy number, contact information, stuff like that is a
Yep.
great idea to do. Because usually you always have your phone with you. So
Yeah.
if disaster hits, there's certain things you're going to grab and go, and your phone is going to be one of those. So I think
Right.
if you have it on there, then you're in good shape. Especially since after the disaster, a lot of these organizations, nonprofit and for-profit organizations, as well as federal agencies, require proof of residency
Right.
for applying for disaster assistance.
Right.
So if you have a picture of your driver's license, even if you lost it, you can show that you are in the disaster area and you're entitled to
Right.
applying that. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Okay, so if somebody wanted to grab a list that we were just talking about of important documents, things to grab, where do they find that?
I'm pretty sure we've got it on our
Yes.
website. Yeah.
And yeah, it's an important documents tip sheet on, again, oklahomadisasterlegalhelp.org. Yeah. And we also have brochures, pamphlets, that have the information on them as well, and we always, if we're out in the communities, we're always trying to hand this information out. Physical copies, but it's also a website is a great place, that you can access it whenever.
Right. And I think they're translated in different languages, right, Arla?
Our website actually translates into over 100 different languages. It has a feature called Recite Me on it. So it can actually translate not only to different languages, but font size, coloration for different contrast, colorblind, or anything like that.
Right.
So that it actually does a whole, even does it for the deaf. So it'll speak to you and tell you what's on the website and things like that as well.
Awesome. All right. Well, moving on just a little bit. I think another big thing on being disaster ready is, and this is something we work on in what we call blue skies times, is having the deed, the
Hmm.
title, to your home is a big thing. I mean, your vehicles, things like that, but a big one is your home. And so verifying that you are the legal owner of your property and putting any documents that prove that up with your important documents, I think is important.
Right.
And that's something that we do help with for our clients that qualify, is helping get legal title
Yeah.
into their name before disaster.
So that would come from generational housing. So
Yeah.
somebody who maybe lives in grandma's house who hasn't changed the name over or anything like that. We find that a lot in Oklahoma. So if they don't know if the home is in their name, where can they find that out?
Well, they can go down to the county clerk and ask for the information on the property. They can go, most of the assessors, the county assessors, have websites that you can go on and
Right.
pull the property tax information. It's going to tell you who the owner is, that kind of information. So it's usually available online, and you can also go down to the county. If you are unable to do either of those, that's something we could assist with. Yeah.
I think a phone call too. I mean,
Oh,
I've
yeah.
called to confirm. I've looked online. I've called the county to say, "Hey, this is what it shows." Also, make sure that these records are up to date, and they've confirmed that for me via phone. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, if you're nice and friendly, we
right,
always joke, if you're
yeah,
nice,
yeah,
they'll help you,
yes, yes, yeah,
So, I think the next thing is insuring your home. A big, big part is your insurance coverage.
hmm,
So there's a lot of different types of
yeah,
insurance. You want to know and read your policy. The big thing is, an insurance policy is a contract.
yeah,
So you're going to want to read it and know what it says, know what it covers, and familiarize yourself with that.
yeah.
So,
And if you have questions in the policy, that's something we can always, you know, we can answer those questions of, what does this exactly cover? Am I fully insured? Am I underinsured? Because I think here in Oklahoma, especially, there are a lot of folks who are underinsured, and of course they don't know that until they've been hit and they're trying to recover, and they find out that they're not able to fully recover via insurance.
yes, yes. And we're going to, in just a moment, talk about one of my favorite things, is the ACV versus
Yes,
replacement
yes,
cost. But
yeah,
so first, how do you know what's covered in your policy?
yeah. I mean, the declarations page is the first step, kind of the cover page to a policy, first page you see, and then the meat of kind of it kind of breaks that down is the actual policy in
Right,
terms.
right. So different policies cover different things. So, like your homeowner's insurance policy, generally, now these are generalizations. This is not legal advice.
Yep.
You would want to look at your specific policy. As a general rule, your homeowner's insurance is going to have your property itself, the house itself. It's going to have your personal property that's going to be inside, your bed, your TV, those kind of things. It's going to have outbuilding coverage usually. And that's going to cover if you've got a freestanding garage or something on the property.
Shed or something like that. Yeah.
And then there's a liability portion on your homeowner's insurance. It's going to cover personal liability that might occur on
Hmm.
the premises. Um, so those are some of the coverages on your homeowner's policy. And then it's also good to know things that aren't going to be covered. A lot of times, people don't understand flood and earthquake, those things, those perils, so they call them, are not covered on your
Hmm.
homeowner's insurance. You need a separate policy.
Right. Right.
So what are the general things that a homeowner's policy peril-wise that you've seen cover?
I mean, wind, especially here in Oklahoma, a wind event is covered typically, unless unless it's stated explicitly that is excluded,
Right,
or and there also is deductibles. It's kind of getting in the weeds, but that's deductibles are different for different covered perils. Peril being
right,
a
right.
disaster, certain event. But yeah, wind, um, certain
Including tornado, right,
tornado, right? So just high winds,
hail.
tornado, hail. Here in Oklahoma, that's probably the most likely. Of course, we get winter storms too, but that usually leads to water intrusion, which can be difficult and
Mhm.
go back to is it a flood? you know,
Yes.
how did the water intrude? So that, those are complex issues.
We're
You
still
know,
seeing some of those from 2021,
we
aren't
are,
we?
we are. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's stuff that, we could, again, we could help with if you have those problems or questions on what it is, what is this a covered girl or not? That's something that
Right.
we can look at and kind of help you determine.
So, what does someone do if they didn't have enough insurance coverage for their home?
Well, I mean, I think at the time, you would look for outside resources. That's either through a nonprofit organization or, aid from FEMA or SBA, Small Business Administration. I always want to let folks know that SBA is kind of a misnomer. You know, they do give loans to businesses, but specifically in the disaster context, they give disaster loans, low interest disaster loans to folks to help them replace or rebuild a home, replace personal property. Can also help with mitigation, a loan to help you with getting a storm shelter or something like that. But I think that is the best answer is you need outside aid. And
Right.
hopefully that FEMA would be declared so that you could get FEMA assistance. But if not, then, I think nonprofits would be your best bet.
Okay.
Right. And I think going back to the policy itself, one way to ensure that you do have enough coverage is one, you want to look at it. You want to look at your limits of your property and what will be covered because your insurance policy is not, and I don't like to use black and white, but generally they are never going to be liable for more than what that policy coverage amount is.
Mhm.
So they're going to pay only up to that. And one way, a big thing, like I said, we were going to get to is the actual cash value versus replacement cost. This is where most people fall short on their insurance coverage. And you really have to look at your policy to know what you have. So there's actual cash value and there's replacement cost policies. So when you are shopping for insurance, this is something you need to be asking which type of policy this is. So, for example, in an actual cash value scenario, you could be left short. Let me go to replacement costs. Lose your roof in a tornado. And I'm going to use very easy numbers. Let's say it's $10,000 to replace your roof. Let's say your roof's 10 years old, that's not even an old roof in Oklahoma. I mean, it's starting to age, but that's not bad. So let's say your roof's 10 years old. You have replacement cost and the contractors quoted you $10,000. In a replacement cost scenario, your insurance is going to pay what it costs for that new roof, that $10,000,
Right.
right? What you need to get your roof fixed. In an actual cash value policy, they're not. They're going to look at depreciation and they're going to say, well, your roof's 10 years old, and they're going to discount some amount of money for each year. So it could be a $10,000 roof. Your roof's 10 years old. They're going to say, oh, well, we're going to depreciate at $5,000. So now you're $5,000 short minus your deductible. We're not even including what you've got to pay
Right.
for your deductible. And so that is where people fall up short is that one thing.
So, it'd be best to make sure you have replacement costs.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely recommended. We do know, however, that comes with a higher premium.
It does.
So sometimes that's not always possible for folks. So in that case, you of course get what you can get,
Right.
and then
Okay.
you just try to make sure you're on top of maintenance.
Right.
So I mean, there's ways to try to do your best with what you have if you're not able
Right.
to get the recommended
Right.
items. But yeah,
Right. Some insurance is better than no
right,
insurance,
absolutely,
but
right.
yeah. So I guess let's say something happens and you need your insurance coverage. What do you suggest be the first plan of action?
I mean, if you have an event, you need to mitigate damage is the number one thing, which is prevent any further damage. Every policy requires that you try to prevent any further damage to the property, your personal property, real property as well as personal. And then I think you need to take pictures and videos of the damage. And then the next would be filing a claim. And then, of course, I always recommend folks with doing with insurance, really any agency, is to be consistent in following up. And of course, when companies organizations are overwhelmed with a bunch of claims applications, they're not going to do so in such a timely manner. So it's good to just follow up and be persistent in that.
Right.
Okay. So, I have a question on that. You were saying, take videos and pictures of your damage. what if the insurance company comes back and says, "Oh, that was already damaged"? How can they prevent that from being said from the insurance company?
Oh, that's a whole can of worms.
It is.
That is something that you're going to need legal help with. So at that
Okay.
point, you need to contact an attorney and we need to take swift action to get in contact with your insurance company. And usually we try and get people to push their company until we have to get involved. So, we want them to call, we want them to email. Um, and I always say, don't just call your agent, call the company itself.
Right.
Because your agent, I used to sell insurance. Okay. Your agent, especially some of these independent agencies, their bottom dollar gets down to some of their claims. So I don't want to say, I'm not saying insurance agents do that or would do that, but I have seen an occasion where somebody calls their agent and no claims put in. And they're 2 years later saying, I never got anything from my claim. Well, you called your agent, but nothing was ever submitted. So you want to actually call the claims number on your policy. Not just your agent. You want to call the company and alert them. But I know we kind of got distracted on your question, Arla, but coming back to that is something that it would turn into a legal battle at that point.
I mean, I do think also maybe something that folks could do is try to take pictures and videos of their property, prior to disaster.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, maybe every 3 months, every 6 months, if because of course we're always acquiring new possessions. We're selling cars, we're buying cars. So I think just always trying to take pictures of what you have is a good way to show.
I usually say that. Good job.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
good.
I assume that's where she was going.
Season,
Yes.
During the storm season, I think that is absolutely. I'm so glad you brought that up because huge. I tell people when I talk to them kind of in that vein is every storm season, go and get a video. And I think you're right to say more often than that because, vehicles, things change.
Yeah.
So every once in a while, walk through your house and get a video of what things are, especially if they're in good order. That way you have got that to prove even the outside. Very good point. Very good point.
And can't that help with inventory whenever you have to make that claim? You have that video to tell you what you have because you won't always remember what all was in your house whenever the disaster hits.
Especially if you've been in a house for 30, 40 years, you've acquired a lot and stuff's just up and at it gathering dust. You need to have the inventory list, kind of an ongoing list. And kind of personally, I always think I'm a lover of books. I have a lot of books. So I'm frequently, and it's probably my personal property is probably my most prized possessions and ones that are probably cost the most. So I'm always taking pictures of them, and just, kind of have an inventory of what I have.
Have you checked your insurance policy to make sure your books are covered? Because there are limitations on jewelry.
Right.
There's limitations on guns. If you have something, music equipment, if you, maybe even your books, you might look at that because there are some limitations on your policy for items, antique items, jewelry. If you've got more than it used to be 5,000, it could have changed. So I'm not sure if that's the number, but look at your policy and there's a limit on jewelry. So anything you want covered above that, you have to tell your insurance company, and usually they're going to charge you a little premium for it.
Okay. So what are some additional things we need to know regarding, owning a home and the disaster hits and maybe mortgage or anything like that?
Got it. Yes. So if your home is destroyed and you own your home and you have a mortgage, you have to pay the mortgage. Whether you have a home to live there in or not, unfortunately, that mortgage is due. Now, can you make a call? Are there things that can be done to ease that process? Yes, but generally, you're going to have to pay your your mortgage. Right. So, yes, very important. So, you want to definitely avoid foreclosure, the foreclosure process. So what in the event somebody got a foreclosure, wouldn't you say they probably pretty immediately need a call for some legal help?
Yeah, that's one of the issues that I always advise folks to immediately call us. Because unfortunately, sometimes foreclosure is the best option. We of course don't want people to be out of their home, but if it's destroyed, and then your insurance is paying off the mortgage, or it's destroyed and you don't have insurance, however that comes about, you need legal counsel to yes,
Individualized.
individualized legal counsel
Yeah.
to walk you through that, to advise you on the best steps and what are some options afterwards.
So, what if somebody has a rent to own contract situation and they do not carry insurance on the home? It's supposed to be carried by the seller of the home during that contract.
Rent to own is a common issue, if you will, in Oklahoma, and very complex. It's a gray area in the law.
It is. It
Um,
is. I mean, and so really, who has the responsibility of the damages is not black and white. You have to look at your contract. And I mean, I've seen 1-page rent to own contracts and I've seen 30-page rent to own contracts. And most of the time, it is written to the benefit of the seller
right.
because usually they're the ones with the financial resources. So, especially if you're the buyer in a scenario, you need to know what that contract says because each each contract is different. It truly is on who has to cover that. So, you want to know what the contract says. You want to the extent you can. And again, I mean, our services are free for low income people. So this is where we could help a low income buyer who, this may be their only option, but at
Right.
least we can look at this contract and at least we can make sure that there's some onus on the seller and that the buyer knows what they're getting into. So it's just very important to have someone sit down and review that with you.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think this is one area kind of going back to the connection between disasters and poverty in Oklahoma is a lot of times people who are entering into rent-to-own contracts, this is the only option. If they could
Right.
afford, a
Standard.
standard, conventional mortgage loan option, most likely they would. But since they don't have the credit for that or whatever the case may be, then this is their only option to be able to obtain a home and
Right.
be a homeowner and invest in that. So yeah, we want to help those folks and advise them on the best.
Right. Help and protect their
Yes.
asset, their
Yeah.
only,
Yeah.
probably only
Yeah.
asset at that point, largest asset.
Yeah.
Okay. So, are there any additional steps that you would recommend to a homeowner, either before a disaster, during a disaster, or even after, that you think would be beneficial?
I have one silly one to add.
Okay.
Cut your trees. Cut your
That's
trees
good.
off of your roof. That is some practical advice.
Don't plant Bradford pears close to your house.
Don't plant Bradford pears, period.
Yeah, they smell bad in the spring and they break.
Yes.
But they're pretty. Yes, but yeah, I think that's very practical. I mean, besides taking pictures, like I said, of personal
Yes.
property, that's always something we always want to recommend. I think just also a practical one is cleaning out your storm shelter. And if you don't have one, I think knowing where you will go in the event of a disaster, having a family plan is something that is good to have, and having a to-go bag is good.
Yeah.
Kind of disaster go bag to run to duffel bag, whatever it is, to
Right.
grab and go.
Right.
Yeah, and one of our resources we have on the website is to ready.gov, and they actually have a family plan and a preparedness kit set up
Okay.
on ready.gov that you can go and do for adults or for kids.
Oh, yeah. And that's the FEMA website, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Oh,
Yeah,
great.
for disaster
Okay.
preparedness.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, thanks, guys. This
Yeah.
was our first shot at it out there to the audience. So
Yeah.
we'll be back hopefully with more. But thank you, Arla. Thank you,
Yes.
Isaac. And again, my name's Jessica. And can you tell us about our website real quick before we sign off, Arla? And
Yeah.
where can they go for questions, concerns, so forth?
So on our website, you can go onto www.oklahomadisasterlegalhelp.org. And that is our website. You go on there and you can find information for preparedness. You can find information for community outreach. On our community outreach, if you all would like a presentation done by one of our skilled attorneys, then you can actually submit a request through the website.
So,
There's video tutorials on there as well to walk people through different situations. And there's just all of our flyers are available for download on there. Everything on there is free and we do not have any copyright on it. So if you want to print it out and give it out to people, go for it. Please have fun doing that.
awesome.
Yeah, and I think last thing too, if you are in need of legal assistance, our information is on there. Our disaster hotline is on there. Call, leave a voicemail. You'll receive a call back, and can obtain your information, do an intake to see if you qualify, and go from there.
You can actually start your application
Right,
online
right.
through the website as well.
Yes, even
Yep.
better, even better. Yes.
Awesome. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Y'all have a good day.